Hello, and welcome back to Crit and Crit. I am Scint, and I have a puppy chewing a bone in the background. Sorry for the noise.
I'm Axion, and I'm getting beat up by a bird.
Oh, and you're used to that. And we are continuing our discussion of Terry Pratchett's Hogfather while we play through Pokemon Christmas. So, last time we were talking about the concept of children and innocence. Today we are going to build on that, and how do you fix innocence? You educate it. So, let's detour a second into our favorite pastime, Scint rants about musicals.
Da 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 da.
Going back to Into the Woods, because it's just a good one. Careful the things you say, children will listen. Careful the things you do, children will see. So, are all lessons conscious?
Well, no. That's where the entire idea of the, well, what's the term?
Role model?
Role model, thank you. I was blanking completely there. The entire idea of the role model is somebody that you learn from observing rather than being educated by directly. Somebody who is a good role model is someone who, by their very actions, gives someone else an example to follow.
And I think that often gets kind of overlooked when we talk about making sure that our children are being raised the right way. Because a lot of people are really big on the do as I say, not as I do school of pedagogy. Here is how you are supposed to behave. Now, please don't look as I go and do something completely different. And the children watch and take this in, and they learn about the other behavior that they're not supposed to know about. Which kind of circles back into the whole, think of the children, my children should not be exposed to this thing. Well, you've already exposed them to it. What were you expecting to happen? So we kind of see this a fair bit throughout Hogfather. We have Susan explicitly teaching the children things, first of all, because she's their governess and it's her job to teach them basic reading, writing, arithmetic, etc., etc. But she also does serve as a role model of, you know, you don't have to be afraid of the monsters. I'm showing you that the monsters can be beaten. I'm not just telling you things like your other governess did to scare you into line like so many people would. I'm trying to do my best to be an educator to you in all senses of the word. And that pays off for her in the end because what she has taught them about what, like, the poker only kills monsters ends up saving the day. On the other hand, you get a lot of more implicit lessons from, well, a lot of other people. Like, look at Death. Death doesn't know a lot about how people work, and he tends to learn by trying to be there. Albert has to expressly correct him, but Death does a lot of trial and error. So, no one is explicitly trying to teach him, but he's still getting those lessons. Heck, a lot of people got lessons about the meaning of Hog's Watch, which apparently meant watching boars rampage through Macy's.
I mean, as you do.
Yeah, then we got the university.
Oh, there are a lot of lessons being learned at the university. Namely, there's a reason that most of Johnson's stuff is sealed up. Or, meant to only be used in a certain way that's not in line with its original design purpose.
Ah, yes, we'll get to Johnson later. But yeah, children, more so than most, because theoretically, by the time you're an adult, you have been a child and have gone through the process of being educated to become an adult, whether that be through school or through just the school of hard knocks. You have learned enough about the world to function on your own without, injuring yourself on the sharpness of a ball of yarn. Children haven't had that chance yet. We want them to have that chance, so we need to make sure they do not injure themselves on this sharp, sharp ball of yarn. So, lessons in modeling are very, very important. So it's good that they have people like Susan around who can help them with that. Now, we do see that there are quite a lot of other examples of, we see several parents. We get Albert mentioning how his childhood was, where his lesson was basically, Hogs Watch sucks, we're too poor to have anything, and there's really no point in caring because my dad's a drunk and I can't have nice things because of that. At the department store, we have all the parents of children who are very thrown off guard when Santa goes off script and gives one of them a sword.
The sword, it's not supposed to be safe.
But what if she hurts herself?
That will be an important lesson.
And that, I think, raises another point about lessons, which is permission to fail. And I will tell you, that is not a lesson that goes over easily.
Oh boy.
So, one of the things that school, at least at my school, we were trying to create is an environment wherein you have a safety net so you can safely fail. Because not understanding something isn't the end of the world. It's a chance to stop, metacognate, think on what's difficult about it for you, and try again and improve. But we as a culture are so steeped in get it right the first time, I don't need no help, that people do not handle not getting 100% the first time very well.
In contrast to that, my job actually has a a company policy called Get It Right the First Time. Which,
yeah, and
very
that's,
different
I think,
environment.
Where the education. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, the education part of it. You are post-education.
Yes.
You have completed your schooling and training, therefore you are expected to have the tools you need to understand how to do your job. Students are, by definition, not at that point yet and are expected to not be flawlessly getting 100% on every single thing every single time. Missing a few questions here or there, needing to have a concept re-explained, is expected and normal. But because there's such a strong emphasis on you must get this right the first time, no matter how many times the teacher says that otherwise, accepting temporary failure as a minor setback is an almost insurmountable hurdle for many. It's not to them about the learning, it's about the having learned. Are we done yet? Can I move on? Oh no. And that, I think, is something that needs to be addressed, but that's, at this point, a systemic problem. Because a lot of that worry comes from, well, the competitiveness of getting an education in the United States. And what I mean by that is scholarships. Because so many scholarships look at your GPA and your rank in the class, not doing perfectly often means you might become ineligible for scholarships. So, if someone can tell me how to fix that system, please let me know in the comments. I don't think there is a system that I, as a lone teacher, can fix anything.
I mean, it goes beyond scholarships to some degree. Just getting into a college at all sometimes can be a matter of who gets in versus who doesn't is a competition. There's only so many acceptances that go out. Every person that gets in, there's at least one other person who didn't.
Yep.
And that builds up into jobs as well. The way jobs are handled, at least here in most of the states, is extremely competitive, and the expectation is that anyone who wants to get the job will need to prove themselves as the best choice out of all of the available candidates.
Yep, and that kind of leads into the issue of learning for the sake of learning versus learning for the sake of the endpoint. And that's something that is a major issue as well. Like, I have very often heard some students arguing with other teachers about, like, I want to be X, I don't need to know anything you're teaching me. I haven't really had that leveled at me lately, but yeah, it has happened before. It's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, like, not every subject is going to be necessary for every day-to-day work, but there are skills nestled around those things that I think you are overlooking. Because, yeah, you might not need to know how to interpret Shakespeare, but critical thinking is kind of important. And etc., etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
So this also, I think, gets into the issue of lessons with multiple foci. Like, as I just said, we read Shakespeare, but it's not just because, OMG, it's just a Shakespeare, it is the best play ever, exclamation point, 111, exclamation point. It's also interpreting a complex text where sometimes things are read between the lines to figure out. Because often in life, everything is not directly spelled out for you, and you have to use your context clues and your intuition to piece things together. So there's a lot more relevance than just, why is Macbeth so torn on killing King Duncan? And oftentimes people will just stop at the surface level, when it's not really the surface level that's the point. So, in many cases, that's going to be an issue as well. People not fully understanding the importance of the lesson or even what that lesson is. So yeah, lessons are extremely important no matter how they are taught, and sometimes, as mentioned when we were looking into the woods there for a second, they're not even consciously taught. Sometimes you have people who do not understand what is happening doing the teaching. Hello, Arch-Chancellor Ritcully trying to communicate with Hex. And even Ritcully managed to accident his way into helping Hex by telling it was having dried frog pills.
It's kind of one of those,
blind pigs and truffles?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Or perhaps in our case, blind puppy and shoebone.
Oh, she is not blind. She is quite aware of things. But I know what you meant.
Yeah.
She
I
is
just
currently
heard a thud.
staring sadly. She is currently staring sadly at me because I'm not taking the hint to play with toys.
Well, you may have an opportunity, because I'm not sure there's much more to add on this unless you had another subject to begin going down on.
really, unless we want to segue, like, and find a way to work the little match girl in, with which would be everybody else learning a lesson at the expense of someone else. But I think we talked about that pretty thoroughly.
Yeah, I was about to say, we did touch on the little match girl as this kind of idea of learning at someone's expense, or a message at someone's expense, but beyond that, it's kind of like there is a expectation and encouragement, for good reason, for people to be able to learn from the things that happen to other people. And especially when I was young, the idea was... The idea was that if you learn from other people's mistakes, you don't have to make those mistakes.
But that's not often how this is actually put into practice.
I was about to say, the issue is that, well, number one, a lot of people just don't do that. And two, a lot of people just aren't good at that. And a lot of that's just the way human brains work. You learn a lesson better if it's something that happens to you. If you experience it directly, it's going to be a more vivid memory, a more vivid imprint on you personally than something that you observe that happens to someone else.
And, like, similarly, like, there's also the, when you put your lessons into practice poorly, such as charity is an important thing. And we see Death looking in on the, king, forcing his scraps on someone who never asked for them, and trying to force gratitude out of the unwanted charity. Learning the emotions, but not really the intent. And that's also an issue you see sometimes. If the behavior is modeled poorly, people are going to learn the wrong lesson for how to implement it.
Yep. If you learn charity is a good thing and thanks is a good thing, but don't learn about the concept of
consent?
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it, is you're going to end up inevitably crossing a line that shouldn't be crossed without consent. The idea being that just because you want to give somebody something doesn't mean they want it, and just because you give somebody something, especially if it's something that they did not ask for or need or want, that they are not automatically grateful. And that's where you end up with someone in the situation like this king, where the king knows generosity is supposed to be a quote-unquote good thing, and that people that you're generous toward are supposed to be thankful for it. So he's going to go force his generosity on somebody and then demand they be thankful and that they owe him. And then collect on that gratitude. And at that point, it's not really generosity at all. It's manipulation and control masquerading as generosity.
Performative charity.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's probably a good place to stop, because now I actually am out of things to say with this.
Yeah, I think we ran that one pretty dry.
Alright,
but
until next time.
We'll see you then.